Hi cuties! Welcome back to another QT session. I'm Soleil, and if you were here last time, you should remember us talking about Queen Cleopatra. But today, we'll be talking about a new queen, and not many people know about her. She's mysterious, she's bold, and she is a certified diva. Today, we'll be talking about Queen Amanirenas. But before we get into her story, I have to get ready. We'll talk more about the eye patch later on in the story. However, Amanirenas was born sometime between 50 and 60 BC in the kingdom of Kush. We don't have a lot of information about Queen Amanirenas because the language that her kingdom used has not yet been decoded, meaning we have less information about her story. However, the story is still a legendary one. Her reign started sometime in 40 BC alongside her husband Teratocus. She had 2 kids. Her son's name was Akenadad and her daughter's name was Amani Shiketo. They lived in the capital of Monroe. For reference, Amanirenas was queen the same time that our beloved Cleopatra was pharaoh of Egypt. Now, if you were here last video, you should remember about how the Egyptians love their gold. Well, believe it or not, Amani's kingdom was mostly giving the Egyptians the gold. The kingdom was known for their exotic goods, gold, and their shipping routes. So remember how we previously discussed how Octavian was taking over Egypt and stuff? Well, Amanirenas and her husband are just watching this all unfold, and they're over here talking to each other like, yo, you see this? Yeah, I see it. So they don't actually engage with Egypt nor Rome, but they do keep a close eye on everything. After Augustus conquers Egypt, he realizes that he wants more land. But he also recognizes that if he just leaves Egypt with no one to rule it, then it's just going to go right back to the Egyptians. So he calls up his friend Gaius Cornelius and is like, hey man, you want to rule Egypt? And Gaius is like, sure. So I don't know if that's how the conversation actually went, but that's how I imagine it going. So Augustus leaves and he goes to ruin some other people's lives per usual. And Gaius is finally appointed prefect of Egypt. During 29 BC, the Egyptians start to rebel against Roman rule. Gaius goes to stop the rebellion in South Egypt, and once problems are solved, he crosses over to the kingdom of Kush. He takes one look around and is like, a pretty good land. Yep, it's mine now. Picture it like this. So you're just sitting at home on your porch when a random walks in your yard and he's like, hey, I want your land. It's pretty good land. And you're like, but I live here though. And then what happens is he looks across the street and he sees a random guy. He's like, hey, you come take care of this land for me. And just like that, your land belongs to Rome. Amanirenas is aware that her land is getting taken, but she's also aware that her army cannot face the Romans' army. So she decides to wait for the perfect opportunity. With no retaliation for his theft, Gaius is ecstatic. He raises the taxes in Philly and tells anyone who would listen about how he conquered this new city. At this point, even the Romans were tired of him. Unfortunately, Gaius becomes one of Augustus's new ops, because according to the Romans, Gaius has been participating in some disrespectful gossip about Augustus. Messy. Augustus ends up charging Gaius with a buttload of crimes, and the Roman Senate votes for Gaius to be exiled. Once news gets to Gaius, he's so deeply sad that he ends up himself. Augustus names a Roman knight as the new prefect of Egypt. But as soon as the knight gets to Egypt, Augustus is like, hey bro, yeah, sorry, I need you to go fight a war in Arabia. The knight gathers a legion of men, and he leaves to go help out Augustus. But meanwhile, this is all going on, our beautiful Queen Amanirenas is still keeping a close eye on everything. With the army separated, she has the perfect plan for revenge. Amanirenas, alongside her husband and son, led the army to attack the Romans in Egypt. They actually end up conquering 3 cities, capturing citizens, and they take the head of Augustus Caesar from a bronze statue. Amani's husband ends up dying. However, we don't know if he died during war or if he got sick. Though after he died, Amanirenas was elevated to Candace. Candace meaning female ruler. She was the second Candace in the history of her kingdom. Side note, in the story, there are 2 Gaius. The one that, and there's a new one that is appointed to be the new prefect. His name is Gaius Petronius, just so you know the difference. Once news gets to Petronius, he is pretty upset. He sends an envoy to go and retrieve the stolen property. And the Cushites retreat to a place that I absolutely cannot pronounce, so it will probably be down here, but it'll be somewhere on the screen. The envoy gets to where the Cushites are, but they're confused because there's no king. Once the Romans finally smarten up and realize that the Candace is actually Amani, they go to her and demand that she return all stolen goods. But no matter how powerful they think they are, you don't demand anything from the Queen of Kush, Miss Amanirenas. So she tells them, no. Upsetting spaghetti, Petronius sends an army of 10,000 men. Yo, where does he get 10,000 men from? Anyway, he sends 10,000 men to go attack Amani, which is outnumbered. Seeing that they are outnumbered, the Cushites retreat to Monroe. But during the battle, Petronius captures some of Amani's generals. Side note, I don't know if this part was planned, but it was nothing short of a genius. While interrogating the generals, they all tell him different stories. One tells him that Akinadad is king, another one tells him that they don't have a king, and then another one tells him that Amani is king. But when asked the location, they all tell him that they're going to Napata. So Petronius marches his army 570 miles to Napata. Petronius found out that the Kushites retreated to Monroe, and the generals purposely led them in the wrong direction. Petronius was so mad that he burnt the city to the ground. Still mad, Petronius writes a letter that states that there was no point in staying at Napata, but him and his army would have to march 330 miles to go to Monroe. So, with a tired army and extremely hot weather, he decides to leave some of his soldiers in Napata and take most of them back to Egypt. But the story is not over yet, cuties. Amanirenas comes back and attacks the remaining Romans in Napata. It is this battle that she gets slashed in the eye, being permanently blind in one eye. Get it? This is where the eye patch comes in. But sadly, Akinadad does die during the battle. From most accounts, it is said that her being slashed in the eye and Akinadad dying is what made Amanirenas more determined to win. Side note, it's said that Amanirenas had a pet lion, and anyone who was captured during the battle was fed to her pet lion. It's about 22 BC since the battle at Napata. Amanirenas quickly rebuilds her army and heads for the Romans in Primus, the word will be somewhere on the screen. It's located at the edge of the border of Egypt. A Greek historian named Strabo described Amani as, quote, a masculine sort of woman, blind in one eye. Now, he was definitely throwing shade her way, but this was his way of telling that her presence on the battlefield was commanding and fierce. To be fair, Greeks and Romans considered any woman that acted outside of normal womanly behavior to be masculine. In other words, they were just your average hater. Amani ends up marching down there, but it's a stalemate. You see, Amani is able to surround the Romans. However, the Romans have ballistas. Again, the word will be somewhere on the screen. See, a ballista is like a cannon gun, but instead of cannons, it shoots arrows. You see, Petronius is sitting there having a tantrum. He's upset because he doesn't get to go to all the triumph festivals and do all the cool things the other rich people are doing. You know why? Because he's sitting there fighting Amani. So he ends up begging her to go to Augustus instead. Though Amani doesn't dare give respect to the Romans by traveling herself, she sends a few of her warriors and a Roman escort to go meet with Augustus at a Greek island. When meeting with him for the first time, her warriors give him a bouquet of golden arrows and, quote, this is a gift from the Candace. If you want peace, then this is a token of warmth and friendship. If you want war, keep her arrows, because you're going to need them. An epic boss move. Only a select few can welcome and threaten the biggest civilization in the world with zero hesitation. After negotiation, they both signed a treaty Samos that stated that Kush would be an independent state. The Romans will no longer try to invade, and all territory was given back. Though Rome continued conquering other countries, Amani effectively got the Romans to stop the southward expansion of Africa and got Kush to be able to be a kingdom of peace for the rest of her reign. So, you remember that bronze head statue of Augustus Caesar that Amani took? Well, it turns out that she buried the head under the steps of one of her temples because she wanted all of her citizens to be able to step on the head of Augustus Caesar while celebrating the victory over Rome. Iconic. It sucks that Amanirenas isn't as popular as the other African queens. I mean, scholars have not yet been able to decode their language. They have found ruins of the city and paintings of the battle. I can't wait to learn more about her and her daughter. Side note, I would have really liked to see her and Cleopatra ally together and team up. I feel like they'd be totally best friends. Anyway, thanks again for sitting through another QT session with me. If you have any queens that you want to be discussed on my channel, comment down below. Let us know what you think about Queen Amanirenas' story. By the way, if you were wondering where our gorgeous camera girl is, she couldn't make it to this video, but hopefully you might see her next video. Thanks again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!